Imagine transforming the darkest moments of your life into a source of strength, not just for yourself, but for others around the world. Quiet. So I have a few questions.
Yes.
Have you reconnected with your daughter?
Oh, well, when she was 2 years old,
Mm-hmm.
they were on the phone. My mom and her husband, they were on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
They were cussing, they were cutting up.
Mm-hmm.
And they were yelling at the lady because they decided they wanted to get her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they decided to cause confusion because I guess they didn't know that she told me whenever I want her, I could just call her,
Mm-hmm.
or they didn't care. Well, they're cussing and cutting up on the phone, and then they come in and they're yelling at me. You get on this phone and you pick up the phone and you tell her you want your blickety blinkety blank blank baby, and I'm just, all of this is just coming at me now. This time I'm like 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going on and on and on. So I pick up the phone and I'm crying.
Mm-hmm.
She's on the other end and she's crying.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still yelling and cussing.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I told you if you wanted your baby, all you had to do was call. Yeah, she wants her baby. Yeah, I mean, it's just going on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So the poor lady, she's just heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much that they were going to take the baby back, but how they did it, I think.
Right.
And so they went and picked her up. And she came to live with us.
Mm-hmm.
And they lied and told my siblings that she was a cousin
Mm-hmm.
that belonged to one of his sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was just living with us. My siblings also didn't know. Once they found out, because one day we were just in the kitchen, and I don't know what kind of hell got in her, but my mom just said, that's Tony's child. And my siblings were like, what? You know, they're still young.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what? And they start, playing around. Oh, you got to call me auntie. You got to call me uncle. And my daughter's jaw is on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I am floored. I don't know how to react. I don't know how to respond.
Mm-hmm.
I just left. I had to flee.
Mm-hmm.
It might sound bad, but I didn't know what to do.
You're still young.
I didn't see it coming.
You haven't even processed the fact that you even have a child.
Exactly.
So being aired out like that, that's a lot to take on as a 14-year-old.
And then she lied to them and told them that my daughter belonged to that uncle.
Oh, they're still keeping up that lie.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the uncle, again, remember I told you he got into a lot of trouble. He had just gotten into trouble, some bad trouble. I think he killed somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And she had the newspaper clipping. So that kind of helped to solidify what she's saying about him. Again, this uncle was nothing but good to us.
Mm-hmm.
One day, and I'm living with this guilt that I've lied on this man and said that he was a rapist.
Mm-hmm.
One day, girl, I come home and he is sitting on my back porch.
Mm-hmm.
He's on one, there's two railings going on either side of the steps. Mm-hmm. He's sitting on one side with the baby brother.
Mm-hmm.
I sit on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, Tony, come here, I want to talk to you about something. I was like, oh, I'm terrified. I am, because I lied on him. Right. And he has every right to be angry with me.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
So he pulls me to the side, to the curb, and he says, I never touched you, did I? I said, no, sir. He says, my brother told you to say that, didn't he? Yes, sir. He said, I thought so. He said, but don't worry about it. He says, I'm not mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you the power of forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
being forgiven. It was as if I could have floated to the sky. The weight off my shoulder that I to some degree I didn't know I was carrying
Mm-hmm.
was enormous. Just him saying that. Whew, I don't even have the correct words to explain how that felt
Mm-hmm.
to have
I
him do
can
that.
imagine.
Yes.
So, when did you come to terms with the fact that you were a parent and you had a child to take care of?
Well, it it's almost as if it were just a fact of life. It's a fact.
Okay,
There's oxygen. You breathe it.
got you.
That's all it was. It was a fact.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get, of course, when she was newborn, I didn't get to bond with her like
Mm-hmm.
I did with my next two children. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get to bond with her.
Right.
So uh, we have a great relationship
Mm-hmm.
now. We've had a great relationship for years. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was never any animosity from her.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, her animosity is towards my mother.
Mm-hmm.
But having to take care of a daughter, it wasn't so much as now I've got this child that's depending on me.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I had all these siblings.
Right. You already
So
parentified,
she was
being the
there.
eldest. Yeah.
Yeah, she was there, and she
Mm-hmm.
was just in the bunch of kids.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the bunch of kids. So it wasn't as if she and I were separated away from them. We were
Mm-hmm.
there living in the same household. It's just that now they knew that this was their niece.
Their niece. Okay. He never tried to touch her though.
I don't believe so because,
Okay.
again, when he came, she was 2.
Mm-hmm.
And not long after that, he was moved out of the
He was
house.
gone. Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
she didn't go to his new house.
Okay. Got you. So, when did you come to terms with everything that happened to you as a child to start the healing process and then move on to help others to heal through these processes?
It was very gradual.
Okay.
I joined this church
Mhm.
and I became the Sunday school superintendent.
Mhm.
And a lot of the kids that would come to the school, they were living in the projects across the street.
Mhm.
And I was able to relate to them because I grew up in the projects. We didn't have any money, the whole 9 yards. But
Mhm.
I remember thinking that I wish that I had known about the resources or things that
Mhm.
were available to us when we were younger that we didn't have, or if people spoke life into us and
Mhm.
helped us. And so I decided I was going to do that. So I started reaching out, doing stuff with the kids, and eventually I started a nonprofit organization that would help me be able to do stuff with those neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And I started a workshop called Still Surviving and Walking in
Okay.
Your Purpose. And even though I started it, I still didn't realize how significant it would be.
Mhm.
And I named it Still Surviving because I do not believe that, some people say, oh, you survived this or this happened in your life, forget about it. Why
Right.
are you living in the past? It's
Mhm.
not that you're living in the past,
Mhm.
but you know that whatever you've gone through in life forms the lens through which you look at life,
Yeah.
how you relate to people, how you talk to them, how you deal with certain situations.
Yeah.
And I happened to be talking to a coworker, and I was telling her about the workshop. And I was telling her why I named it what I named it.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked at me and she says, oh, well, because I was talking about triggers. And she says, well, for me, it's mayonnaise.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, wow, okay. And I didn't ask her to elaborate.
Okay.
Because for me, it's
Mm-hmm.
cold ketchup. We used to keep
Okay.
ketchup. We used to keep ketchup in the refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, in all my youthful wisdom, I decided that I was going to put ketchup on a sanitary napkin so that
Mm-hmm.
I was on my period.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the feel of that cold ketchup on my body. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to see the condensation because it's all going to come back.
Right.
So I thought, wow, that's when I knew, okay, girl, you're on to something.
Mm-hmm.
So I started hosting these workshops with adults, and the stories they would tell.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to think it was just me, just my siblings. But the stories they would tell would just break your heart. And it just expanded to the point where I eventually, I was talking to God and I said, I'm talking to these people, but I know there's a lot more people out here and I need to figure out how to reach them.
Mm-hmm.
And it just fell in my spirit. Do a talk show.
Okay.
I had no clue. All I knew about a talk show was what I saw on television
Mm-hmm.
and what Google told me.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. But
Mm-hmm.
I called a friend who I knew was into film. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, hey, so uh, you've done this, that, and the third, but you've never done a talk show, have you? He's like, no, I've never done a talk show. So you want to do a talk show with me? He was like, sure. I called another friend. I said, hey, so I'm going to start this talk show. And she said, yeah, you will. I said, but do you want to host it? She
Mm-hmm.
signed up to host it.
Okay.
And we created this talk show. And what I looked for were people who had gone through traumatic experiences.
Mm-hmm.
What I did not want to do was what I knew I didn't want to do. I would watch, and nothing to take away from Dr. Phil at all.
Mm-hmm.
He does an
Mm-hmm.
amazing job. However, he would have the guests come on and they would share their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And he would say, we've lined up some help for you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Awesome. However, what about the people whose wounds you've opened
Mm-hmm.
listening to this person's story? What do they
Right.
do?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go further than that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have a psychologist or a psychiatrist or some kind of therapist
Mm-hmm.
afterwards to talk to the viewers and the listeners
Mm-hmm.
about tools and resources that they could use if
Mm-hmm.
they've experienced certain traumas or if they know someone who's experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also chose people who were at a particular level of success. They didn't have to be millionaires, but I wanted people who did not look like what they've gone through. Because
Right.
oftentimes we carry our pain as a badge of, a badge of honor. Like, this is
Yes.
what I've gone through in my life. But I
Mm-hmm.
wanted people who had achieved success, who when
Mm-hmm.
you looked at them, you would never know until they started talking.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is for people to now be able to see that there is life on the other side, that there's
Mm-hmm.
still hope for them, that they don't have to be what they were. And this is not the end. Like, I never knew that this person who
Mm-hmm.
looks so good and looks like he's got it all together went
Mm-hmm.
through the same or similar things that I've went through. And if
Right.
they can do it, then I can certainly do it.
Mm-hmm. And you're definitely a testament to that because you're telling me you had your first child at 11,
11,
12 years old.
11,
And
yeah.
now I'm calling you Dr. Claresa Baggs. Okay. So
Who would have
that's a
thunk it?
testament unto itself. So tell us about that story, how you are able to finish high school, go through college. Tell us that part of the story.
Actually, well, I went through actually, and I dropped out of high school
Okay.
and I went and took the test for the GED. passed the test. So I didn't have to go to classes.
Awesome.
I got my letter in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, congratulations. I still have my letter. It says, congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it and I took it to my mama. And I said, Mom, look. And
Mm-hmm.
she looked at it. She read it. She says, and set it down.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
How old were you at that time?
18.
Okay.
I was 18. And so I had been going through different kind of situations, learning life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And I got taken some college classes.
Mm-hmm.
And life would always get in the way. I decided that I would take all these other classes and learn as I went.
Mm-hmm.
I became certified as a life coach.
Mm-hmm.
I started hosting the different workshops with women's groups in churches and again.
How old were you around that time?
Oh, I'm an adult now. I am. This is now I'm talking.
Okay.
Well, not as much
Mm-hmm.
because having people tell their stories was cathartic for me.
Really?
Yes, because I still couldn't really tell mine.
Ah, okay.
I still couldn't because I'm. And I remember the first season, and my friend, the one who was doing the filming, he says, well, you're asking all these people to tell their story. You got to tell yours too. They're going to hear from you. And I'm like, no, they don't. So they taught me into it. His name is Adam Madrid, and his wife, Monique. My gosh. And if you watch it, I don't know. I feel like you can see that I am in a complete ball. I am not, loose and free flowing and telling the stories. My whole body is constricted while I'm telling this story. And it's the first time that I had told it was going to be recorded. I told bits and pieces, but I had been doing this work and speaking to people internationally, virtually. So I was going to go to Africa, and I've been talking to those folk and just pouring into them and doing everything that I've been doing. And I've done a lot of. Sometimes I forget the amount of work because it's been so much that I've poured into the community, from prom dress events and just stuff for the community everywhere. That they decided that they would, because I didn't finish college. They decided that I was worthy of my honorary doctorate in social work.
Got you.
And, a lot of times people tell you that, and it's true, because the Bible tells us also that sometimes you don't receive the respect that you should receive in your own town. And I had to learn that because I'm always trying to heal people. Like, they'll get it. They'll get it. They'll understand. But to have to go to another country in order for those things to come to fruition. I am truly honored. There's no way you could have told that in 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old girl that she would be telling the stories that she tells, that she would be pouring into other people. I'm working on a documentary now.
Oh, nice.
That's going to focus on child suicide. Because we don't talk about that enough.
No, we don't.
And
it's on the rise.
And we're taught, especially in the Black and brown communities, whatever happens in my house stays in my house.
Yeah.
So, you either talk to Jesus or you talk to the pastor. Well, the pastor, some of them got issues. So it's It's pretty bad. So I'm going to talk to people who either had suicide ideations, attempted suicide as a child, and
Okay.
family and friends of children who are successful in their suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and look at it from the angles of religion,
Mm-hmm.
uh, our society as a whole, social media, schools, everything, because all of that plays a role in it.
Absolutely.
And also to show people and teach people that it is true that the tongue is mightier than the sword, and that the tongue does have the power of life and death. And there are
Mm-hmm.
many people who have committed suicide because of the tongue of someone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we need to be able to recognize that, because the first thing people do, and you know this, is when someone commits suicide, the reaction is, well, why didn't he talk to somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't she say anything?
Mm-hmm. Or why didn't I recognize that
Why
they were
didn't I
going through
recognize
something?
it? And chances are they may have wanted to talk to you,
Mm-hmm.
but
But some things are
because
afraid of judgment.
and hearing you judge
Yeah.
someone else that
Right.
is in their situation, but you
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
friend is in this situation. And
Mm-hmm.
now they can't
Mm-hmm.
tell you because they know how you really feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I can't talk to my best friend, I can't talk to my mama, my daddy, nobody, I may as
Right.
well not be here. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to change that.
Yeah.
We need to speak our truths. We need to hold people accountable.
So do you still have the nonprofit?
I do not have the nonprofit.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because with a nonprofit, there are a lot of restrictions.
I know. I'm a nonprofit consultant.
A lot of restrictions. And a
Yeah, and I
lot of
tell people you don't have to
restrictions.
start a nonprofit in order to help people. A lot of times, the best thing to do is to start a social enterprise. It's a
Mhm.
for-profit business. You can create impact. You can own it, and you don't have to deal with the bureaucracies of a
Exactly.
nonprofit
So that's how I
organization.
ended up away
So,
from the nonprofit, because I
yeah,
knew the kind of stuff I wanted to do.
wanted to do that would be
I didn't want to
restricted
be
under having
tangled
a
up
yes.
into,
Hmm.
you can't
Hmm.
do that because you
Yeah,
are a nonprofit
yeah.
organization.
And that's why when people come to me to start nonprofits, I kind of steer them into the social enterprise aspect of it, because I'm like, if you want to add a nonprofit at a later time, you can, but you
Yes.
need to own something first because you don't own a nonprofit, right?
Yes.
So, yeah,
Oh
I
my gosh,
focus
the number
more.
of people that say I own a
Yeah,
nonprofit.
you don't own it.
No, you
You don't
don't.
own it. People, you don't own it. Okay,
You
it
do
doesn't belong
not
to
own
you.
it.
It's a publicly owned company. When you dissolve it, the monies have to go back to another nonprofit. It's not yours. You can't pass it down to your kids. None of that
Ex-
stuff. I mean, that's not what this podcast is about, but just a PSA. You don't own a nonprofit. You may want to consider doing a social enterprise. Reach out. I'll help you. Okay,
Yes.
but yeah, seriously. So you under Dr. Claresa Baggs, your own banner now. What services do you provide for people who are suffering from childhood trauma? And just a caveat: my podcast that came out on Monday was of a young man that does. He talks about retraining your brain, and he talked about how the things that people go through in their childhood manifest in their day-to-day interaction in their adulthood, and how
Very
you can
true.
identify it and how you can retrain your brain to not be triggered or react to all the negativity that you are going through subconsciously or consciously because of things that happened to you in your childhood. And he even talked about the fact that, this one guy, he just could not, he had a good job, but he just could not stay afloat. It's like he would always self-sabotage. And when he went to a psychologist and figured out what
Oh
was
my
happening,
gosh, I
it
can't
was
believe you're
because
saying
of
this.
something that happened with him and his father in his childhood. He could not allow himself to be successful. So when I heard your story and I just interviewed that guy, I was just like, oh my God, these two will go so well together. And I think you guys should meet, because I think there's a way for you guys to collaborate and help even more people, because he has the brain science down pat.
Um,
Okay.
when my last corporate job, I
Mhm.
was working for a major insurance company,
Mhm.
and I was a trainer in IT.
Mhm.
I had to learn this a particular system, create
Mhm.
the curriculum, have my curriculum writer actually write it up, but then I had to teach it.
Mhm.
And people would fly in from all over the state so that I could teach them. Because at one point, I was the only person in the entire corporation of thousands of employees that taught this. And every month, I would have a meeting with my management, and I had to write down what I did for that month
Mhm.
because they didn't micromanage.
Okay.
And what you saying? My page would almost be blank because I could, I didn't have the ability to toot my own horn. My maiden name is Marcel,
Mhm.
and my mom and her husband decided to call us Marshits.
Oh
And they would
no.
tell us that we weren't shit, never were shit, and never would be shit.
Oh
They would
wow.
say this constantly. Now, if it
Mhm.
came from a stranger, that's one thing. But if your
Mhm.
mom tells you this, you believe it and you embed it. So when I
Mhm.
had to write this stuff, I couldn't write it because who wants to hear from somebody who ain't shit? This is
Mhm.
what's in my brain.
Mhm.
Even, golly, even when it comes to people ask all the work that I have done,
Mhm.
people ask me for my bio.
Mhm.
I I have to
It's hard for you to
copy.
write.
I, I don't even write it. This is what I have
Mhm.
to do because I still can't. I still struggle to write it.
Mhm.
As
Mhm.
old as I am, and I'm old as
Mhm.
Methuselah. If someone would interview me and write down the interview and everything that they wrote, I would then
Mhm.
go and plagiarize and take
Mhm.
pieces out of what they in order to create my bio because I cannot write my own bio.
Story. Mhm.
All these years, I'm just now starting to kind of get there a little bit,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
still feel guilty about it. I still feel self-conscious about it. So I understand what he is saying. Oh my gosh. When you
Mhm.
started telling me what he was saying, that's why I laughed because I'm like,
Mhm.
he's right.
Mhm.
He's right. We carry this with us, everything that we've gone through. But what
Mhm.
I try to teach people is that the triggers may send you back there, but I want to teach you how to not stay there.
Stay there.
Don't stay there. It's going to come.
Mhm.
It's going to happen. Everybody doesn't know your stories, but it also,
Mhm.
all it takes is a taste, the sound, and a smell.
Right.
And you're right back there. What I
Yeah.
want you to do is learn how not to stay there. The people that I talk to
Mhm.
who have come out on the other side,
Mhm.
I want them to explain to people how they took all that ugliness that has gone on in their life and how
Mhm.
they've learned to find their purpose and how now
Yes.
they're walking in that purpose.
Mhm.
Everything that happens to us serves a purpose. It's not
Mhm.
all bad. It's like, I told the Sunday school kids, everything that good that we perceive to be good doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily come from God. And
Mhm.
everything that we perceive to be bad doesn't necessarily come from the devil.
Right.
Sometimes God allows things to happen in
Mhm.
our lives that in our minds are bad things, but he has a purpose.
Right.
There's a method to his madness.
Mhm. Mhm.
And had I not gone through all of the ugliness that I've gone through, I would not have my daughter.
Mhm.
And I honestly cannot imagine my life without
Without
her.
her in it.
I
Mhm.
cannot.
Mhm.
If I were given the option, and this is true on so many levels, if I were
Mhm.
given the option of going back in my life
Mhm.
and not having those things happen, I would not change it. I would not choose that option because she has been a blessing to us.
Mhm.
I love her more than she could possibly know.
Mhm.
And no matter how she got here, she's my child
Right.
and nobody else's. She's
Yeah.
mine.
That's beautiful. And that's good that you are in that place because I know things like this that have happened to other people, and they cannot see the child because the child is a constant reminder of the pain that they went through. So they can't disassociate. So the fact that you were able to embrace your daughter and realize that these are two separate events. She is just a byproduct of something that happened, but she's still mine, you know, and give her the love and care that she needs so that she doesn't have to go through all of the trauma of being rejected by her parent. That's wonderful.
Yes,
That's wonderful. So again, tell me what services you offer in your business so that people, because like you said, now we've hashed up a lot of trauma for people, right? I'm going to have to put a disclaimer on this video. You know, I am at the beginning of the video, I'm going to have to put, what is it that they say? Trigger
warning.
Yes. I'm going to have to put a trigger warning. And I think I'm going to break this video up into 2 parts. Your cause story and then this other part of the video. But I mean, I think it's going to be a powerful testament to some people who really need. So tell us, what services do you offer for people who have gone through tremendous childhood trauma and are looking to move past it so they can have a quality of life?
Yes, I do have a life coaching service, so I do offer that. I do host workshops. I am engaged in public speaking. So if anyone's looking for someone to speak at their events, I am available, whether it's national or international. I do have a book.
Okay.
It's called But First, Forgive Yourself. Let me tell you, this was a hard thing to do. And for a lot of people, I'm sure it is. It's hard. And this might sound strange to people, but I was able to forgive him, but still working on forgiving my mother. You know, because in my mind, this is the person who's supposed to protect me. She's supposed to be willing to lay down her life for me. Because I know I'd be locked up behind my kids.
Right.
So it's harder for me to forgive her than it was for me to forgive him because he owed me nothing.
Right.
But I am available again to lead workshops. This one that I really like, one of the workshops, it's called Living on the Other Side of Your Mattress. Getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Something I tell people all the time, you got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Seriously. No matter what you're doing in life, if you want to be successful, you have to be comfortable in uncomfortable spaces and situations. Yeah.
And if you want to be able to pour into people's lives, you have to be willing to be vulnerable.
Yes.
You have to be willing to open your mouth and speak your truth and weather whatever comes your way.
Yeah.
You know, people tell me all the time, you know, I just can't get in front of people and talk. I can't get on stage and speak. And I tell them that as long as you're speaking truth never changes.
Right.
You may change how your delivery, but the truth never changes. So I encourage people to learn to speak their truths. Seek therapy. If you need to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a life coach, speak to someone. Because we are not good counsels to ourselves because we're constantly beating ourselves up. We're our own worst enemy. We live with the if I coulda, woulda, shouldas. If I had only done this. So we take on a lot of the hurt and the causations for the hurt. You know, it was my fault. I should have done this or I should not have done that. And that is never the case. I don't care if you're a child walking around, running around butt naked. Nobody has a right to touch you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you kind of started with the next question but you only gave me two and I need three.
Okay.
So, tell me three things that you want people to walk away from this interview, understanding, knowing, and being able to implement in their own lives.
I want you to understand that no matter what you've gone through, no matter what people have said about you, no matter what you've experienced, it is not your fault. I don't care if it looks like it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
That whole walk like a duck, quack like a duck, not in these situations.
Okay.
You need to understand that, again, it is not, I can't say that enough. It is not your fault. I need you to seek help. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. The world doesn't need to know that you're going to therapy. They don't. They don't need to know. But here's the thing. Here is the thing. When you go to therapy, the therapist is only as good as the information you give them. So if you go in there and you don't tell all of your truth, and I'm not saying you got to, soon the day one, you got to just
Right.
open your guts.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to tell them all of your truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in order to get that help.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are in a situation and have the ability to help someone else, do that.
Okay.
Do that. And also understand that how you felt when people made assumptions about you.
Mm-hmm.
And when people are in different situations, before you cast judgments, think about your situation and think about how that felt. And think about how that tone cuts like a knife.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all of those things. And lastly, learn to forgive yourself. Learn to forgive yourself for, I put myself in that situation. If I had not done this, if you don't forgive yourself, the healing cannot begin. That's why the book is called But First Forgive Yourself. Then you can work on forgiving other people. But you can't go around forgiving other people and you carrying this burden. You're carrying this weight around your shoulders as if you are not worthy of forgiveness. And you absolutely are. You are worthy, and you need to accept that and then work on forgiving other people so that you can heal.
Okay. And what makes you an impactor?
I speak life. I speak life. I try to find the good in people. I try to understand, if somebody's out there and they're just doing stuff that goes against the grain, I understand that there's a reason for that. Something in somebody's life. I don't believe that, and there might be some psychologists out there who will say, no, people are born. I do not believe that people are born evil. I believe that there are reasons why people behave the way they behave. Not an excuse. Absolutely not an excuse. But I try to speak life into people and teach them that they are not who their situation says they are. They are not what happened to them. They are not the result of them being a bad person. That they are greater than, and that there is life after all of their trauma.
Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Claresa, thank you for being our guest today on Impactors Out Loud. Your story is powerful. It's heart-wrenching, and it is a testament that as human beings, we can overcome almost anything with the right resources, the right people, and the right mindset. So go ahead and tell our audience how they can get in contact with you if they would like to utilize your services.
They can contact me at bookings@claresabaggs.com. They can, I can give them, can I give them my phone number?
Sure, if you want to.
904-305-4124. Give me a call. I'm willing to talk to you. Shoot me an email. I'm willing to come to wherever it is you desire. And also, you can obtain my book at Amazon, But First Forgive Yourself.
All right. All right. Thank you again for being my guest today. Until next time, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.